Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. You know, this past anime season, it wasn't the best season, but there were some shows that had promise when we started out. And I kind of feel like everything let us down to some degree.
I think the most charitable you could say is that most things we watched this season dipped somewhat towards the end, right? That's
To varying degrees.
To varying degrees, yes.
We will talk about because...
And at varying speeds.
Yes, and at varying speeds. Which we will talk about because it's time for our season wrap-up podcast for the winter 2022 season.
Yes, we take a backwards eye at the rich haul of anime that we've fished up over the last season.
The few and proud the few and proud shows that made it to the end. We will talk about. So before we get into that, just to introduce everybody, I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iroh.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still with us, and joined by G.
What's good, everybody?
Yeah, so like we said, we're going to talk about the end of the winter season. Well, we have some things to say about some shows that
indeed
are a bit surprising and unfortunate, but we'll get to all that in a minute. Before we get to the actual wrap-up, though, I did want to touch on, and I've been kind of ignoring this the past couple episodes, and there's just more news piling on.
But as of this recording, we have some breaking news in the world of anime streaming.
Yeah, like the world of like legal anime watching has been shaken up quite a bit over the past like month. With we kind of knew things were going to happen with the acquisition of Crunchyroll, and then both Crunchyroll and Funimation coming under the Sony umbrella. Like, we knew things were going to happen at some point.
Yeah, it's almost like corporate acquisition is really bad for the consumers and the fans.
Yeah. So, I mean, it started with them just deciding to straight up kill Funimation.
Yes.
Which kind of surprised me a little bit that I thought at least brand-wise they would keep it alive. Even if they like merged,
Western anime
yeah,
brands,
that's in a lot of ways. Like it hadn't really hit me until recently that like this is, that they're just like straight up kind of like mothballing that name, right? I mean, the way
I thought they would maybe like come up with a new name or like call it Crunchyroll Funimation or something. I don't know.
Whatever, right, yeah, like
they're like, no, Funimation's dead.
Do a Namco Bandai, like just combine the two names.
Which
Square Enix.
Which I found kind of amusing that when the announcement came out, like Funimation Twitter only up until recently started acknowledging this was happening, and Crunchyroll like immediately started adding people and saying cancel your subscription.
Yes.
The whole thing is funny to me if you think of it like a messy like love triangle where people keep breaking up with each other. Between like Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Sentai, who is behind High Dive. Like you had like years ago, Crunchyroll and Funimation hooked up, right?
Yeah.
And then they had like a real messy breakup, and Crunchyroll immediately rebounded with High Dive. If you remember, like within that hour, they like announced like, you're gonna be able to watch all the shows on VRV and all that.
Yep.
And now they hooked back up with Funimation again and broke up with Sentai. Funimation said delete Sentai out of your phone. That's like which we saw this week with the additional news of Crunchyroll dropping like a lot of shows.
Who could have seen this coming? Who knew that corporate consolidation would be bad for the consumer?
Most of the shows they're dropping are ones that Sentai have, so I'm assuming that's probably
what's going
underlying
on there,
thing. And And it's a lot. Like what is it, like 100 shows or something they're taking off, and some of them are. I mean, like
amount. Yeah.
Most of them are kind of. I mean, most of them are sort of like B-list stuff, like because that's what High Dive gets. But like the biggest name is probably like Food Wars, which is like B-list but popular.
Yeah, it's a Shonen Jump property. It's,
yeah.
Noted.
But there's a lot of things that hurt me personally. Like, well, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun is a popular one. We're losing that. Golden Time. Shout out to
fucking Golden Time, huh?
One of my personal favorites. Tanaka-kun is always listless. I'm skimming this list. Like, there's a lot of my cult favorite gel shows are dropping off of here.
Majestic Prince.
Majestic Prince.
Man. Majestic Prince.
Super Robot War 30's Majestic Prince.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that was a pretty.
I mean, that's one aspect of this, right? And then we have the most recent aspect of this development. That
I'll point out that was like 3 days ago, and this is now like 2 days ago. They dropped another, probably the biggest bomb of all, which is Crunchyroll dropping their support for they've always had a free streaming option. So
right.
It's always
the simulcast would be up for free with ads a week after the original airing.
You could. There was always some method you could legally watch anime for free on Crunchyroll for quite a while.
Yeah, and they announced that they're dropping that. They have just as some clarification. Apparently, you will still be able to watch shows prior to this upcoming spring season, but anything after that is going to be locked behind the premium subscription. With the exception of a few shows that they're going to like dangle out as a preview, and you'll be able to like watch the first couple episodes or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty big news because I have to imagine when they were evaluating the value of Crunchyroll, a large part of it was the fact that I didn't verify these numbers, but I saw somebody mention like they only have like 5 million premium subscribers and like 150 million like free users.
Yes, it is 5 million paid subscriptions to a 115 million
I mean,
free users.
Even if those numbers are not 100% accurate, like it's a huge disparity is the point,
yes,
right? Like,
and this is why, like, in a lot of ways this decision is, I mean, not baffling. I know exactly why it's happening, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
greed, et
cetera, I'm actually like surprised this didn't happen sooner, but
yes, but this idea of like, I think the people responsible for this decision are going to be very surprised when they make a decision like this, and they don't in fact see those 115 million start signing up for paid subscriptions, because it fundamentally does not it fundamentally misunderstands why people subscribe to services versus utilizing a free option if available. And this idea that, oh, well, we did the math, and if we kill our free subscription entirely, we'll probably get, of that 115 million...
Right, a percentage.
Like, a percentage will become paying subscribers. And no, in fact, it's probably going to go the other way around, where, as the oft-posted page from the hit Weekly Shonen Jump manga One Piece often says, I believe the world is about to witness a great era of piracy.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, with all these streaming services, like, I always look at it as like their main competition is piracy. It's not even each other, really. Like,
right.
If I like take it away from anime, look at like other like Netflix and stuff. Like, if there's something on Netflix I want to watch, but I don't want to pay for Netflix, I can't say, oh, I'm going to go get Hulu instead. I have to, like, your other option is piracy. So, like, you get all these people that, and then just to make the assumption that the only reason they're not paying is because they're okay with like putting up with the ads or something, no, they're probably not paying because they don't have the money to pay for it.
Right.
Then it's just a very short-sighted decision.
Yeah, and especially with anime, because again, like, this is a topic we've talked about before, but like, in many ways, piracy was the true mentor, the guiding moonlight of anime fandom.
Right. Western anime is like so tied up in with piracy and
with piracy,
trading tapes and
scanlations, like fan subs.
Even Crunchyroll itself is based off of
Right.
Yes. For the kids out there who do not remember, Crunchyroll started out as one of the many illicit streaming websites on the internet that you could watch episodes of Naruto on.
Yes, and they were just the one who negotiated to get an official Naruto stream.
Yes, yeah. and it's look, I'm not out here to be like, Crunchyroll forgot its roots, because whatever, right? The sweet allure of money
makes fools of us all.
Makes fools of us all. Yes, thank you, but. Like, this isn't, like, this is not to, like, necessarily, like, make assumptions, but, like, I'm going to suspect that the people who have Netflix subscriptions are probably not as tech-savvy, right? Like, the reason why Netflix earned such a huge, like, percentage of market dominance is its convenience,
Right.
It's availability, right? Like, if you own a PS4, you can get Netflix, right?
I can watch Netflix on my Nintendo Wii U.
Yes, exactly. Like, and you get the whole library. It's very, it's relatively simple to just find something to watch on there, right? And as a result, its clientele is also not necessarily as in tune with pirating or pirate streaming or what have you. But we're talking about anime fandom. Like, I'm not gonna like fucking like blow up any spots here, but like, if you're an anime fan, you probably know at least 3 to 4 different websites you can hit up for what you're looking for.
They all know.
Yeah, you all know.
The GLORIO blog does not endorse, whatever, but you all know.
You know.
If you don't know, you know someone who does. Look.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, I'm not surprised, and like I said, in fact, I'm actually surprised it hasn't happened sooner, because, Crunchyroll has been, let's remind everyone, they were essentially owned by AT&T before Sony bought them. Like, they've been, like, mega corporation for a long time. And I feel like if I'm, short-sighted big boss man at a corporation... And I'm looking at this free option, and I'm like, "Why are we doing this? Nobody else is doing it." Like, could you imagine if like Netflix had this? Had
a free tier.
Right. We'll put this show out, and like, if you just wait a week, you can watch it for free with ads.
Like, Hulu has ads on their paid tier.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Even if you pay for Hulu, you still get ads, right? Yeah, so like, I can see how, like, if you're a big boss man that doesn't have insight into how specifically the anime industry works, like how piracy is an even bigger factor.
Right. Like, that's the thing. I think
it was probably a pretty smart move to have a free tier on Crunchyroll.
Yes.
Right, because like that's basically this,
because
like,
that is income you weren't going to get anyways.
Right. You can maybe get some from ads.
Right. You are turning a viewer base that was never going to pay for your service into at least partially contributing to your finances through ads. Like. Mm-hmm.
And you know what? When that like 13 or 14-year-old kid watching the free one gets a job in a couple years, he might pay the $10 a month. Like, you're that you got to think more long term for that, and it's just like such a short-sighted decision.
Yeah,
but,
like
you're telling me long-term sustainability is more appealing than short-term gains.
Like, it's a thing of like it's interesting, because I think Maybe I'm just being pragmatic about this. I bet in the short term they will probably see gains from this choice.
Oh yeah.
Like, there will probably be enough people. I don't know how many, like 1 million, maybe less than 1 million. It's hard to say, but there will be people who begrudgingly pull out their wallets and say fine. But I think what you're going to see over time is that the long-standing majority of anime fans, like, just won't put up with that, right? Like, they because they are too tech savvy to be forced into your corporate pen. Like, you deprive them of a convenient legal option, and they will, like...
Then we will take the convenient illegal option.
Yes, the convenient illegal option. Yes, essentially. So, I don't know. Yeah.
Or if they're, I mean, you've got that, and then if they're even like if they're a more casual fan and they don't care about keeping up on like the latest whatever, they'll just watch. All right, well, what anime is on Netflix? I'll find something on there.
Yeah, basically, right? Like there are a lot of fans out there that are just not going to be that discerning, right? Like you will get your like weekly Shonen Jump diehards, right? Who are like, I got to get my new episode of One Piece or whatever, right? But for people who are watching anime like sporadically, who are not even following the current season, but are just watching whatever becomes available on their
like we're the crazy people looking at the season charts and everything, right? Like,
yeah, most
people are not like that.
Like, you know, there are people I know who are watching anime that aired like 2 years ago, like this week.
Right.
Like, that is what forms a huge portion of the anime watching fandom. It are people that are just like, well, I don't want to call them like, you know, fair weather fans, but it's more like they're not keeping up season to season. They are more the type of fan that's like, I'm in the mood for an anime right now. What's currently on, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if you deprive them of an option like Crunchyroll, they're will just look at what other streaming services they're already subscribed to and see what they have.
Yeah. Well,
Odd Taxi now. Wait, Odd Taxi on? Is it on Netflix? I forget. No.
I don't think so.
I don't
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6,
yeah.
Stone Ocean, now on Netflix, right?
Well, from what you guys have told me, they should probably watch that anyway, right? But, yeah. So, I mean, this is the world we live in now. When you have one company, you just got to put up with whatever, you know, they give you, and it'll be interesting to see how long it takes before they. I guarantee the price increase is coming, which
absolutely
is another thing I'm surprised they haven't done yet. Because
I'm really curious how many PR hits like this they can willingly swallow before
they might.
It's Sony that can swallow as many as they want.
Yeah,
problem,
I mean
right?
they might let this one sit for a week or something, but I'm just waiting for the.
You're not wrong. It's just that, you know, even a corporation as big as Sony has misstepped often enough to at least backpedal. You know, like we have seen. You know, look. I mean, you know, for us, we were mainly talking about Sony's gaming division, not Sony as a whole. But, you know, even a company like Sony can occasionally be shamed into backpedaling. So maybe, you know, we will see how things go with the Crunchyroll situation.
Yeah, I think if there were any changes, it's probably going to take a long time before they reverse on it, but. We'll see. Like I said, I'm just waiting for the price increase because they haven't done one in a long time anyway. That's another thing I'm surprised, and it's only $10 a month. Like, I'm surprised they have not.
They've like flirted with like a premium one that gets you manga also, right? Like,
I think they dropped
for a
all
while
that.
there, right? Yeah, for a bit there. I mean,
yeah, they tried a couple different things.
I think another issue that like Crunchyroll is going to run into trying to copy the Netflix formula that is going to like really bite them is that the reason why Netflix has mostly remained dominant in the streaming space is because, for better or worse, the rise of the Netflix original. Right? This idea that you're not just coming to Netflix for, you know, such and such show. You're coming to Netflix because
they've got Daredevil.
Yeah, you know, Squid Game is here or whatever, right? Like
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yes, the Netflix original JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, Stone Ocean. Right. Crunchyroll very much does not have that. Like, they have tried.
They do
They've
have
been trying
Crunchyroll
lately.
original,
yes, there are things that are called Crunchyroll originals. I would not say any of them is really moving the needle. Like, there are not...
Right.
There is not... You know,
what's that made like a real splash?
Like, what's that Twitter account? Like, make up a type of guy to get mad at or whatever. Like, there is no such thing as a Crunchyroll fan who gets a subscription to Crunchyroll because they just gotta watch
Vampire
like,
Princess, bro.
Yeah, or like High Guardian Spice or fucking whatever. Like, that person doesn't exist. I assure you.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but they do have the benefit of now being the only place you can watch new anime, basically. So like there is an exclusivity to it. Is that a real word? Exclusivity, yes, to it to a certain degree. But I get what you're saying, G. It's like, yeah, it's the things that they are stamping their name on are not like if there were theoretically some competition, they could be taking some of these shows back from them.
Right.
I'll be curious to see if High Dive gets any, because High Dive basically hasn't licensed anything for the past, like,
I mean, High Dive has its
2
lane,
years.
and it feels like they that lane is being the Legend of the Galactic Heroes channel.
Yes.
You can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes now on VRV and High Dive.
It's not on VRV anymore.
VRV doesn't exist anymore.
On VRV, you can only watch Dinoites.
The old programming kicked back in my brain.
Yeah.
They'll save it for the next podcast.
Yes.
They can stick with their niche of old shows before 1990.
Maybe you should watch Aura Battle or Dunbine or Blue Gales the Bungle on High Dive.
I believe those are on High Dive, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
So. All right. Well, I don't think we have too much more to say about that one. So
I mean, this is a developing story, so we may check back in on this months down the line.
When I'm complaining about having to pay $20 a month for Crunchyroll next episode, we'll come back to it.
Maybe we'll have the next time, a few months down the line, we'll be talking about the Crunchyroll license fire sale where they have just been forced to sell off the streaming rights to everything they own.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you can get the Naruto streaming license for about $200.
Oh my goodness!
It's coming soon to GLORIO.
I think we did that. I think we did that joke one time of what shows would GLORIO license. But all the weird niche GLORIO shows. All right. Well, let's move on to talk about some actual anime.
Oh boy.
The shows that have wrapped up this season. And we'll start with ones that we haven't really talked about, at least not in a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you guys a chance to catch up.
It's been several months.
It's time to talk about the Winter 2022 show, 86. 86.
Now, what happened with the time frame? Like, they had to delay the last couple episodes or something? Or what?
So, the understanding with 86, which was originally aired in fall of 2021, is that... the sheer scope and scale of the anime and its just material demands and technical demands of the subject matter they were animating meant that the show quickly found itself running into a lot of production issues, and this led to a lot of the funny thing is that even in the midst of all this, I would never say the episode started looking horrible. It's just that you could tell the difference between the budget.
You could see the shortcuts they were taking.
Right. Yes, many more panning stills and dialogue. But I would never say it actually started to look bad, which is in some regards maybe a credit to A1's part. But we started getting a lot of what's it called? Recap episodes. A lot of skips.
Episode 17.5.
Yes. And eventually this got bad enough that it culminated in them deciding to air the last 2 episodes in March.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of preferable to do that than just try to slap something together, right? And kill your staff.
We all saw what happened to Rolling Girls and Wonder Egg Priority.
Oh, there are many examples throughout the history of anime, but yes.
And in many ways, it kind of makes sense. I was talking about this with Ira when we were watching it, because to get into the meat of it itself, I would say that the last 2 episodes are perfunctory in a way. They are the denouement. come
their
down
job.
from the climax of the last episode that had aired in 2021.
Yeah.
And I could see some people looking at this and being like, really, you needed 3 months to animate these 2 episodes? And to that, I would say, no, it's not that they needed 3 months to animate those 2 episodes. It's that they needed 3 months worth of, like, scraps of spare time in the middle of the rest of their budget, like, an animating schedule.
And, like, free slots on the air.
Yes, because the way that anime production works is often a studio gets contracted to animate X number of episodes for Y season, right?
Right.
And the thing about anime studios is that they often take contracts far in advance, right? Like your average anime studio probably has anywhere from the next 3 to 9 months of their schedule lined up, right? Like written in contract of what they're working on. And what happens then if you have production issues like 86 did is you can't dig into your next season schedule. Like, there are contractual obligations.
Right. It's a domino effect.
Right.
Or
like
ripple effect, or whatever metaphor you want to use.
Whatever A1 agreed to work on next season, like, I think we were looking at it was Kaguya-sama, right? Like Kaguya-sama is airing next season, right? So the Kaguya people are going to be taking a hard look at A1 and being like, we noticed you didn't finish.
Tapping their watch.
Yeah, like tapping their watch and saying, hey, we paid for your time from this date to this date. Like, if we catch you working on that other show during this time, like,
yeah,
there will be hell to pay. So what happens is that those last 2 episodes of 86 are probably being, unfortunately, just animated in the off time. Whatever passes for spare time in an anime production schedule is when those episodes are being worked on.
Right.
And so that's probably why, in a lot of ways, the last 2 episodes of 86 kind of feel a little bit anticlimactic, and it's almost not the fault of those episodes themselves, because I think if those 2 episodes had aired immediately after the prior episode during fall 2021, I think we all would have largely accepted it as the perfectly cromulent, like, thematic conclusion to the 86 story.
Right.
Yes.
But waiting 3 months for it does lead to a bit of a, wait, this is what we waited for?
Yeah.
Like, if
it is
I'm assuming,
it is still a perfectly cromulent conclusion to 86.
Yes.
Now we have to wait multiple months, and so it feels more underwhelming.
Because, like,
right?
you know, in many ways, the thing I'll say about 86, like, taken as a whole, like, you know, it's I think if this is the story that you were trying to tell with 86, and these are the character arcs you were trying to complete, I do think 86 does largely succeed in what it was aiming to achieve. The conclusion of 86 is not the conclusion of the 86 story. There are the dangling plot threads. We are aware that there are more volumes of that novel that exist. But thematically, if you're going to end the story about 86, this story about a man and a woman on opposite ends of the societal spectrum in a, you know, real robot-like sci-fi setting, I think it largely does succeed in what it was trying to achieve. Now, you know, your own personal, like, taste for that will vary, I think. I think, you know, Iro and I have made it clear that we have often very much felt the 86's maybe ham-fisted attempts at social commentary to be a little trying at times.
Yes, indeed.
But I will grant 86 this. I think, in spite of all that, this is not as much a praise of 86 as this is a condemnation of the genre it is a part of. But 86 is probably broadly the most successful real robot anime made in the last decade.
Wow.
It's getting there.
While I want to say that's a bold statement, as I'm trying to, like, do the math in my head, I'm like, yeah, no, you're probably right.
Go back to 2012. Starting from 2012 onwards, find me another real robot anime that is unequivocally good.
Jireko.
Is that a real robot?
Is that all right? Fine. Yes. Fine. Gundam, Reconquista, and G is the only other example. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I do know when we started talking about season 2, the couple times we talked about it, it sounded like is this a redemption story? Because like you guys were not like super high on season 1.
I think season 2 was more interesting than season 1.
Yes, I think season 2 broadly. Ironically, I feel like we often complain about shows that do this and do it poorly, but 86 choosing to broaden the scope of its world was actually largely a net good for its story. I think that its original premise was in some ways was difficult to accept wholesale.
Yeah.
Because in many ways its version of oppression is so comically overblown. It was difficult to
Take it
accept
too seriously.
it.
Yeah.
Whereas in many ways broadening the scope to a more like military sci-fi Cold War setting actually did a lot of like wonders for 86's like style of storytelling. Okay, I'm gonna use an example to kind of get at like why I think that like in a lot of ways, despite its many issues, I think that 86 is still something I broadly come away still positive on.
Mm-hmm.
So in the final episode of 86, it is mostly centered around the aftermath of this really large battle that they fought against the AI, the Legion, right? And part of that is that the Federacy, the second nation state that we were introduced to in 86, who rescue the kids after their Bolivian army ending in season 1, also launch a liberation operation of the Republic of Magnolia, or Saint Magnolia,
San Magnolia,
San Magnolia, the original nation from season 1, which has essentially been completely eradicated as a nation state.
Right.
As a sovereign nation, they have been destroyed by the Legion. They very much make it they are very much leaned very heavily into the contrast of the Federacy, why the Federacy is still able to hold on as a nation versus why the Republic is destroyed eventually by this final Legion offensive. And very much of it leans into this idea of even in their death throes, the Republic were reluctant to utilize the 86 in the defense of their own capital nation because of their long-standing prejudice.
Right. How could we let 86ers into our city limits?
Yes. And so this is the aftermath.
They were literally destroyed by racism.
Essentially, yes. It's very clumsy, but yes. The idea is that the Republic of San Magnolia is destroyed by their own internalized prejudices. Right. And the thing that I actually do appreciate in this epilogue episode, where now we see the aftermath of the Federacy occupying the Republic and basically serving as a peacekeeping force to restore some resemblance of order, because the nation state is essentially destroyed, but there are still San Magnolians. They are still there. They're still their people are still alive. And basically, it's kind of focusing on the steps being taken to kind of reestablish some form of authority there. And we get two different scenes in this episode that do a great job of illustrating 86's its foibles, but also perhaps its admirable traits. So one aspect of this is that the Federacy is ostensibly a racially egalitarian democracy, right? There is no, again, it is kind of an America analog, so it is idea of that on paper the Federacy is a democratic republic. Yeah. Yes. And so one of the things they establish once they reoccupy the republic is that the 86 forces are largely responsible for much of the peacekeeping and military aid being rendered to the San Magnolian refugees and survivors of the war, right? So you have scenes now of San Magnolians lining up in bread lines to be given soup and bread by their former, by the people they formerly oppressed, right? The idea being, the power dynamic has now been reversed, yes? Like, now power lies in the hands of the 86ers. And you have a moment where, some San Magnolian is getting his soup and his bread, and he's complaining about his portion, and even here and now, to prove that no matter what happens, racism will endure, he calls the 86er who is literally handing him the bowl of soup, "you damn colored."
It's comical.
It's
like
comical
all the San Magnolians have the white hair. And
the white hair, yes.
Right.
They're basically anime albinos.
Right.
Comical. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
And it's this thing of, like, I get where it's going, because seconds prior to this scene happening, I said out loud to Iro, I really hope this show illustrates that even after great societal upheaval, that racism and prejudice will still endure, that the San Magnolians will chafe against this new order, and that we will see examples of that.
Then they slam us in the back of the head with a hammer.
And I'm like, no, not like that. I meant more subtle. Not just, like, this
is that just like an encapsulation of the 86 experience?
In many ways, yes. Because
like, they have the right ideas, but it's just...
Yes, because, like, in a lot of ways, they're not wrong. Like, because there are stories, I'm not going to go full Legend of the GLORIO Heroes historical tangent here, but there are very real accounts by black soldiers who were stationed in Europe during World War II, who were assigned to, like, render aid to the displaced and, citizens of Europe, who were still called racial slurs, even then, when they are rendering clothes and food to these people, were still, like, had racial epithets thrown at them. And in many ways, because of that, I think that, like, it is important that 86 recognizes that, like, racial prejudice is a thing that does not disappear simply because the power dynamic has been changed. But its method for illustrating it is so comically overblown, it makes it difficult to take seriously.
Yeah.
But then, immediately after this scene, it introduces maybe one of the savviest takes on this trope I have ever seen in my life. Where, after this, Lena, the Mary Sue-ish in Season 1, much better in Season 2.
When she has less screen time.
Yes, military... I will say in her favor, I also do think she comes off as a little harder in Season 2.
I would agree,
like, maybe Season 1, she is supposed to be kind of cloying and patronizing, so that her kind of hardened personality in Season 2 makes more sense. But she's alive, and she is talking with what is left of the San Magnolian military, like a leadership, because
we're doing negotiations with the Federacy and stuff.
Right, basically. And so in exchange for the Federacy aid, Lena agrees to being transferred over to Federacy military authority to command a new formed unit of former 86ers, because the idea being that she has more experience leading them in battle, and she is more familiar with their tactics.
Right.
And the way this scene is introduced, however, is you have, like, the most fucking, like, sniveling, boot-licking San Magnolian, like, general, like, in this room with two Federacy, like, military aides there. And, like, this dude is, like, kissing ass so hard. He's like, thank goodness you're here, Lena. After all, we'd only be here if it were thanks to the wonderful efforts of you and the brave Federacy soldiers who came to rescue us, right? And there's two things that this show does to immediately set this tone. The first is you see the shots of the two Federacy guys who are there, and you see that they have nothing but sheer contempt for this person on their face. Like,
It's like they don't want to be here.
They don't want to be here. They know it's bullshit. And there's sort of this unspoken resentment from the Federacy of, like, wow, we shed blood to save a bunch of racists, huh? Like, that's...
Right.
That's why we died in the trenches, was to rescue these guys. And in addition to that, on this general's desk are two photos facing outwards from his desk One with his loving family, and the other of him gleefully hugging two 86er children, who both have the most dead-eyed expression on their faces.
Anime face.
And I think it is very important to note, again, these photos are not facing inwards towards where he's sitting. They're turned outwards towards whoever would be visiting him.
Right.
And you immediately understand the subtext of who this man is and what he has done in the wake of this war to, like, blatantly try to save his own skin. And it's stuff like that where I go, oh, man, all right, 86, you're not so bad, I guess. But these two scenes are back to back.
Right.
It's like the show understands what good subtext is and then just chooses not to use it. It's like 86 is like, you can have a little subtext as a treat.
Just a little.
Wow. I mean, you're saying it still ended up being a net positive, though, right? Like,
I'd say so.
I mean, would you recommend somebody watch 8686?
Maybe in certain situations where maybe they're expressing interest in the genre and are about to watch something worse.
Sure.
I would be like,
sure.
Wait, no.
If someone came up to me and was like, well, gee, I was thinking of watching a robot anime, and I was thinking either Kyokai Senki or 86.
Right, it was like a
watch?
recent, like if they want to watch like a recent example, right? Like,
then I would most certainly tell them to watch 86.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's my endorsement of 86.
After you've watched every other anime that I recommended for you,
yes.
Then yeah. All right. Well, let's move along and catch up on another one we haven't talked about in a long time. You guys have still been watching Lupin III Part 6.
We did?
We have indeed.
Is that done now?
It is done now. And if you want to talk about shows that don't handle their subtext properly, we can also talk about Lupin III Part 6.
I kind of have to re-echo the thing we've always said about Part 6, which is we have to be reminded that Lupin is a very long-running franchise, and they don't all hit the same. And we got spoiled with Part 5 and the Takeshi Koike OVAs, but we must remember that in many ways Part 6 is a good encapsulation of baseline Lupin. Like, this is kind of just Lupin day-to-day, right? Like, this is kind of what this franchise often is. Part 6 struggled in a lot of ways all the way to its end to really, like, figure out what kind of Lupin story it wanted to be. I think that Lupin Part 6 has, like, 3 or 4 different interesting takes on Lupin, and it really should have just picked one.
Yeah.
Because
they don't really gel together at all.
And by the end, they don't really find a good way to gel. It like, you sort of see kind of what they're trying to, like, say about Lupin by the end, because, like, for context, like, the theme of, like, the final third of Lupin Part 6 is the idea of Lupin's legacy, or more than that, Lupin's roots, right? Like, where does Lupin come from?
Right, because the whole second half of Part 6 was supposed to be about, like, Lupin's mother is out there and causing problems, and you're supposed to question, like, what is Lupin's past? Who is his mother?
I feel like anytime you go the family route, you're really, like, digging deep for ideas.
And
like,
so here's the thing, right? The way I was putting it with Eero is Lupin the Third Part 6 was given a math equation and eventually arrives at the right answer, but you look at the work they did to get there, and it doesn't really make sense how they got there. Because it arrives at the correct conclusion, which is that Lupin's backstory does not matter. That there are no roots of Lupin, right? That Lupin is a primordial, eternal entity, right?
Lupin's roots is Lupin's roots is that he is Lupin III, and here's Jigen and Goemon and Fujiko and Zenigata.
Yes, that there is no Lupin before those characters, right? That there is no Lupin before the Lupin who is the Phantom Thief. And it kind of correctly, understands that about the character, but the method it uses to get there just really doesn't work. The whole idea is that, the person who claims to be Lupin's mother, basically trains and hypnotizes, a dozen different women, across, multiple disciplines and origins and, levels of, societal, standing, to all sort of come together to make Lupin the greatest he has ever been, right? There's a tech CEO, there's a politician, there's a rival spy, a mercenary, just a regular girl who all this stuff, right? And it's all meant to be these women were all handpicked by me to basically push you to be better than you've ever been before, right? But it kind of doesn't work. It kind of feels like a retroactive way to justify all these one-off episodes with random characters.
Because that whole idea has nothing to do with Lupin's root.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It doesn't really work, and I don't know. I really don't think there's actually that much more to say about Part 6.
Yeah.
It kind of just.
It sounds like they just did not have a cohesive plan on.
I don't think they did.
Right,
to give you an idea of how weirdly disparate the writing of Part 6 is, Sherlock Holmes does not show up for the final arc, not even once.
Right. Considering how heavily he was promoted as the focus of the first half of Lupin Part 6.
It sounds like they're oh, we got to make another Lupin. All right, you guys make a couple episodes. You make a couple episodes. You make a couple episodes, and then we'll figure out how to patch them all together. And
yeah, kind of. But unfortunately, I just think it doesn't come together.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, but it is what it is. As I was telling Iro, Lupin as a franchise, right? Occasionally will have these great moments like Part 5, right? But by and large, Lupin chooses to link the fire.
Spin the wheels.
Lupin is stagnation, right? Lupin is stagnation on a universal primordial level. There will always be Lupin III. There will always be Jigen, the primordial gunslinger. There will always be Fujiko, first of the femme fatales, and there will always be the furtive Goemon, so easily forgotten. And it's just.
Yeah.
That franchise just is what it is, right? And occasionally you get the really good ones, but, again, Lupin steals, Jigen shoots, Fujiko boobs, and Goemon cuts. That franchise is what it is, and, sometimes you are just forced to accept that, okay, you are just going to get Lupin parts that are like this, and... you just kind of have to move on and hope that the next one is better.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see how long it takes them to pull out Part 7.
It will happen. I mean, that's the thing, right?
It's going to happen, right?
That's what I mean when I say Lupin is eternal. Lupin will be there at the end of the world, cupping the last cinders of the primordial flame as everything else collapses around him. Lupin will still be there.
When we're in when it's 2050 and we're in season 160 of the GLORIO blog. And,
yes.
It's Lupin part 15 or more than 15 at that point, whatever it'll be.
And it's why in many ways I'm grateful that part 5 exists, because wherever Lupin continues to go, we'll always have part 5.
Yep. Part 5, where it was about how Lupin is eternal, and that thematic through line carried through every episode of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then to my show, Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout, a.k.a. Fabiniku. There is one episode left, I will point out.
Okay, so like another show on this list has not technically finished.
Yes, so that will air. We record Sundays, and I think that they airs Tuesday. So
Yes.
one episode left. Given the nature of the show, I don't think the last episode is going to really change any of my opinions on it. Like, we all kind of know where it's going. I have, of course, been like fairly positive about the show all throughout, and I would not say it's gotten bad, but I do think they finally got a little stale with it.
Okay.
And they're doing the thing with the final arc where with most comedies that are, you know, dumb comedies with heart, where they have to inject some kind of arbitrary conflict to split up the main couple, right? To, you know, add some last minute tension for, you know, your big climax, so that they can realize that they truly love each other and they should never be apart, right? The problem I'm having with this is they pulled this move, I think, too early. Like, this should have been like
interesting.
This should have been like a 2-episode arc, and it's like a 4 or 5 episode arc.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's
To drag out.
And
drag out that separation.
Stretch
arc.
it.
that means like 4 episodes without the main couple like together, and that's like your
Right,
heart
because
of
like
your
if
show.
your show is based on like a really specific character dynamic,
Yeah,
oh, I know what I'll do for a full third of it. I'll split up the dynamic.
yeah.
Like,
so
that, I feel like that only works if you have like a really strong cast where like you can justify the splitting them up, because then you have the fun of like, well, what happens if this character is forced to hang out with that character? But if you
Right.
don't have that,
no, yeah, because as far as the other like, they have a good supporting cast, but it's a rotating cast. So like, they're not there every episode. Like, sometimes, you know, fake Kirito will show up.
sure.
You know, other times the elf lady that they killed her god and made her eat it will show up. Like they're not like they're definitely supporting cast. So like, you can't do what you're saying, G, where let's mix it up, like, because they're not really that important. Like, they're good at their role, but that's not that kind of show. It really is like the show is the main couple. And if we count, presumably going into the last episode, like, it'll be like at least 4 episodes, I think, that they've been split up, and the show definitely suffers from it. Like, the humor's still pretty good. There's still some good jokes, but like, that dynamic is like what you're here for, and
Right.
I don't know why they've stretched this out so long. But
Yeah, that's a little. I mean, I guess it's like, you know, what is it like? What's a phrase? Separation makes the heart grow fonder, or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
they're trying to lean into that, but like, also based on the way you described this show, I'm not sure it has the chops to handle that sort of thing.
you pull that off. You pull that off for like 1 or 2 episodes, like, as your dramatic
like,
final arc.
Also,
and-
for a show that is like mostly a comedy, like, right? Like, I don't. Can you really sustain like 3 or 4, like a full third of a season on this premise?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a bit disappointing. I mean, they still have some pretty good jokes. Like, I've realized they do the joke a lot that I really like, where somebody in so many words basically says, like, what's the worst thing that could happen, and then they immediately like smash cut to them being in the middle of the worst thing that could
Right.
possibly happen.
Yes.
Like,
Gilligan cut,
so like,
yeah.
part of this arc kicking off was like, they go to this kingdom and meet the king, and they meet his daughter, who's like the typical like sheltered princess who never gets to leave the castle. And then like, the main girl like stops her from basically killing herself. She was gonna like jump out a window, and like and she's like, yeah, she's a dirtbag, but she's like still like a relatively decent person, and she's like, all right, I'm gonna stick around with this girl to make sure she doesn't hurt herself. You know, basically what could possibly go wrong. And then they cut to they cut to her standing behind the princess as she's giving a speech to a bunch of troops as she's about to lead a revolution to overthrow her father.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
With no other, you know, explanation, just thrown
Yeah,
right
all right.
into and I'm like, all right, yeah, that's a pretty good joke. So, you know, like, the sense of humor is there, but like, the main appeal of the show is that chemistry between the main couple, and they have not been on screen together for like 3 episodes at least.
Right.
So they did bring in a giant robot last episode, so that was
sure, guy. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
they got what's his name singing the OP, right? So,
it finally started to make sense.
Not the only show bringing in giant robots, I guess.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So, oh well, I guess we'll get to that in a second. But anyway, like I said, I don't think the last episode's really going to change all that much. I'm sure they'll get back together. They'll realize how important they are to each other, and then the status quo will be restored. They'll continue to adventure on to fight the Demon King and
The
return
adventure
home.
will continue.
And you know, at the end of the day, I thought this show was going to be the worst show of the season. If it ends up being, 6 or 7 out of 10 comedy, I'll take it.
I'll tell you what. I don't think it can be the worst show of the season because.
All right. Are we transitioning to our next next show on the list?
Yeah,
here?
I guess we are.
All right. So
another show that has not finished yet, Sabikui Bisco.
So,
Bisco.
full disclosure, I stopped watching this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Understandable.
So I'll let you guys know where I left off.
Okay.
All right.
I kind of watched the episode where Milo storms the governor's office. Like after the governor plays the video of him holding his sister hostage.
Right.
Does
It takes like 2 episodes.
Does the Terminator 2 thing
That's
happen
the
in that
after
episode?
that, I think.
Oh,
Okay, no, I didn't get that far. I got strictly to the part where he like confronts the governor and they fight in his office.
Well, they keep fighting him over a pit of lava.
Yeah. My point is, I hated that episode so much.
Yeah.
That when it came time to watch the next episode, I'm like, I think Elden Ring came out by then, and I was like,
yeah, I mean, we got better things to do.
I'd rather hang out.
I could be watching this or playing Elden Ring, and I'm like, I think I know what the right choice is.
Get your priorities straight, exactly.
Whatever happened after that is on you guys. So.
Okay, so this is like maybe like I'm quickly realizing like maybe one of my least favorite tropes in fiction is like the villain who just won't die.
Yes.
Like, and I don't mean that in the like they're relentless. Like, I mean this in the like, oh,
we've shot you in the head and you're still
this villain too much. So even though like they have long passed like the thematically like best moment for them to exit like the stage, you are just going to keep bringing them back, even if it makes no sense and even if it is a detriment to the story, because they have their final confrontation with Kurokawa, the governor, and like, long story short, it culminates in them basically should be killing Kurokawa like 2 or 3 times in the course of a single episode, but our heroes, being the types of like fiction protagonists to not double tap the body, like, so they will like stab him and he'll fall over, and then they'll be like, well, I'm glad that's done. Let's have our heart-to-heart right here next to his body that is within arm's reach of a gun.
God.
Oh, well, let's keep talking and ignore him. In fact, let's both turn our backs to the villain and have our talk.
I've been shot!
Oh, I got shot. He was still alive. I forgot to check. Oh, no. Now we gotta fight him again.
Side note, what makes that even worse for me is I've been saying this a lot. I hate that guy's voice.
See, I can't hate on Kei Mataba.
He's gonna be the lizard in Biscuit.
Well, specifically the voice
that's
that
great.
Specifically starting when he was the bad guy in Appari Ranman, and they basically had the same episode in Appari Ranman, if you remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing that they did in Appari Ranman when he revealed that he was the villain.
It's
and they
too
couldn't kill
bad
him.
because like I think he has a great voice for villains. He just gets cast as really bad ones.
Yeah.
He was also in Magatsu Varheit.
That's true. Yes. He's also Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh.
But the way they use his voice specifically in these contexts.
What a waste of such a talented VA. Like, he has such a good grimy villain voice.
I don't feel like I don't even feel like that fits like the character in this case. Like I don't know, but anyway, like like that's literally nails on chalkboard for me. So that when the fact that they were like, because even in the episode I was watching, I think he died like 3 times.
Yeah.
So like, from what I understand, you're saying that happens more in the next episode.
Yes. So like, dude literally gets like shot in the head through the eye.
Yeah.
And like everybody's like, "Good job, guys. We did it. Now let's slowly turn away from him and walk off into the I got mortally wounded. I got shot again. Damn.
So
maybe
yeah.
Maybe we ought to fucking check for a pulse or just cut this dude's head off like a zombie. I don't know. But eventually this culminates in a fight over, like, you know, lava, like the end of Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Bisco's on his last legs because he's been, like...
Shot like 30 times.
Shot like 30 times with, like, rust, like, coated
rust,
bullets.
Yeah.
So, like, he's, like 80% of his body is rust at this point. And so, in a final gambit, he, like, tackles Kurokawa off the side of, like, the walkway into the lava, Terminator 2 style.
Mm-hmm.
And they slowly sink into the lava.
Yep.
And, like, there's this tragic moment where, like,
Milo, Milo, I want you to be the one who kills me. I don't want to burn alive.
You're right. I don't want to burn to death horribly in lava.
Shoot me, Milo.
Even though I chose to tackle this person into the lava, I could have just,
Milo,
like,
shoot me. This was the only way it could go, Milo.
Yeah, exactly. And,
when it was clearly not the only way this could have gone.
Milo, this is the only way it could have possibly gone.
It's the only way it could have happened, Milo. I'm sorry, Milo. You have to go into the radioactive chamber, not me.
This is your
radiation.
Christ.
And
shout out to anyone that gets that reference.
And it all culminates in, I'll admit, a little bit of surprising moment because in the lead up to this episode, there's a lot of, like, Milo is like, wow, Bisco, you should, like, date my hot big boob sister. I think she's really into you. And all this stuff, right? Which is very funny because, like, it's
they've
so
met, like, for
obvious
2 seconds, right?
that, like, Bisco and Milo are the ones with, like, the chemistry.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
like,
when you're right, they were like, no, I care about you too much. I can't let you go while you're in
exactly,
here.
right? So this idea that, oh, no, yeah, the one you should definitely date is my sister, wink. So I can almost appreciate here in the final moment, Milo drops the big aishiteru. Like, the big I love you. Not the I like you, not you're my bro. Like, the big aishiteru. The completely unambiguous I romantically love you. So, I guess brownie points for Bisco for having an explicit, like, gay attraction in its show, minus brownie points for then killing that gay love interest 10 seconds later.
I mean, of course,
it
doesn't stick. So,
but it does not stick, as you might guess. This all happens in episode 10. We still have 2 episodes left.
Yes. Out of the horrible lava pit, the Turn 2 lava pit, a big old mech comes out.
Yes.
And starts shooting the rust and everything. And Milo is like, I will carry on Bisco's spirit by acting like Bisco and fighting this robot.
Yes.
So there's all the action stuff, but
I will pitch my voice down a few decibels to sound more like Bisco.
But seems like Kurokawa's spirit is somehow inside of the mech.
Yes, the man
still here.
All right. This dude's a goner, right? He's melting in the fucking lava like Terminator 2. There's no way this guy's coming back, right? But no, his hatred of Bisco is so of the world is so strong that he was able to co-opt the giant doomsday robot that lived in the lava.
So glad I stopped watching this.
And he's attacking the world. And Milo correctly deduces, well, if Kurokawa's still alive, then maybe so is Bisco.
And
so we get multiple episodes of them, like, trying and failing to fight the giant robot through various means. Tank shells bounce, effortlessly bounce off of this robot. But being stabbed with a knife is enough to seriously damage this robot.
That's just how it works, man.
Quite follow, but that just be how it be, I guess.
Yeah.
And in the latest episode before this podcast, Bisco just regenerated, completely healthy. He's got like a glowing arm now. Like he's got like an Ava, Unit 1 arm.
Right.
Just made out of light.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's where we're at with Bisco.
Yeah.
Did anybody want this? Other than Milo saying he loves Bisco, did anybody want any of this? As I'm sure there were a lot of people that wanted that, but they had so many good parts to work with on this.
Yeah, I mean, even in the episodes we're describing, we didn't even mention the part where like Kurokawa like unleashes his machine gun bees.
God, yeah.
Right, like all like the weird like
gorilla,
like boxer gorillas.
So yeah, I did read an interview where they said that was stuff put in by the anime staff because they thought it fit the vibe and they were having a lot of fun. Right, whereas in the
trying
novels
to save
it was
this,
just fighting rabbit head dudes.
Right.
Trying to save this trash.
Right, but of course we, who are Imaishi likers, who enjoy Trigger's works, will go, yeah, give me more of boxing of gorilla showing up out of nowhere to fight shit.
Yeah,
right?
like...
Let us have some fun with it, please.
Yeah, like, not to once again say, boy, what if this show was directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi and screenplayed by Nakashima? But also, what if there was a version of Sabikui Bisco that was handled by that staff instead of the staff we currently have?
Just go a little crazier, I don't know, right? Like,
I don't think you'd have to rewrite this. Like, I don't think you could just like.
I mean, yes, right. I don't know. Would Imaishi have come up with a good joke about Kurokawa keep coming back from the dead? I mean, that dude's a big Westaboo, so he probably would just make a Terminator 2 joke or something.
Yes, but also it would be like we shoot him and then he tweens back up and he's like, I'm still alive! And then we'd shoot him again and then he would tween back up in the exact same animation. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that would be...
Boy.
that would be funny, but it would not save the
No. Like the problems with
the actual
the problem with Bisco. The problem with Bisco go far beyond like execution at this point, right? It's not just like the way it's being portrayed. It is the actual like moment to moment plot beats are like just not particularly well handled at all.
Yeah,
and I don't know how much of that is like is the fault of the original source material, but it just doesn't lead to a very satisfying climax.
I feel like I'm inclined to guess that it's the source material because I feel like unless they skipped a lot of content, I don't see like I don't know. I mean, maybe they did because I did feel like there should have been more of a road trip here, right? Like,
right.
We only had like 2 or 3 episodes of Milo and Bisco on the road together, right? And that felt like that should have been like the
whole show.
Yeah, totally.
And they just cut straight to the final battle, and what a waste.
Yeah. Tyrell came back, and
maybe my favorite character.
She's not enough to save this show.
Is she actually part of the group now, or
kind of? I think.
Is that is there?
Does that even mean anything at this point? I don't know. Like.
It should have been the they get the crew together, they go on their adventure across the the wastelands. But again, what a waste.
You hate to see it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say speaking of wastes, but
well,
I'm glad. Well, first of all, we're going to talk about Ranking of Kings.
Yes.
I'm glad I had a couple days.
Spoil the shit out of this show, but
yeah, I'm glad I had a couple days to cool off before I talked about the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because if had we recorded this podcast after watching either the
man, I think there'd be a lot of hot takes getting thrown.
I'd be coming in real hot.
Yeah.
If had we recorded this right after watching
so 22
episode 22, and to some extent I have problems with the last episode too,
yes.
but Any way you spin it, though, I think the ending was bad.
This is a less than ideal way to end a show like this.
And,
no matter how you slice it.
Go ahead.
It's real disappointing, of course, because
Yes.
up to the end, Ranking of Kings is like slam dunk anime of the year until, and, your ending is important. That is the last thing you remember.
We will always cite, the kill precedent as like a strong ending can take like a good show into a great show, and it can turn a great show back into a good show.
Or it can make Akudama Drive our #1 anime of the year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but before I get too much into the bad stuff, I do want to acknowledge, because we haven't talked about it in a long time, episodes 20 and 21.
Yes. Great stuff.
Because we did not get a chance to talk about those, because those were fantastic.
Fantastic episodes. Completely landed the payoff. Made the wait totally worth it.
Had episode 21 been the final episode, this would still be anime of the year.
We would all be talking about. We would all be talking about like, Ranking of Kings, slam dunk, #1 2022 with a bullet, like. Because like episode 21 is like the payoff, right? It is the culmination of everything Boji has strived for up to this moment.
Busted Vita's father.
Yes, this is it is going full Freud of a man must kill his father, like straight up. Like, we have Boji facing off against Daida Boss, and doing a thing that apparently is a anime original, is the whole like perception
fake giant boss
of Boss as like the
great
like
stuff.
Yes, like the idea that Boss's presence is so grand that even inhabiting the body of Daida, everyone around just can't help but see the aura of Boss himself, the legendary warrior king.
Even though the literal fight is Boji fighting Daida in the courtyard of the castle, it looks like this big grand.
We get this.
They empty the tank animation.
Like this is the thing that reminds you that they're not working on that show anymore. But like Studio Wit cut their teeth on Attack on Titan, and you really see that with this episode or with episode 21 of like fucking Boji fucking doing all this fucking 3D maneuver shit, like hopping through building windows and dodging the club, and it's amazing. Like they really knocked it out of the park in a way that I could never have even conceived back in season 1. Like there are moments in season 1 that look very good.
Yes.
They don't look this good. They don't look episode 21 good. It's
I mean, we talked about earlier in season 2 how they might have been saving their strength for something, and this is what they were saving.
This is what it was. Yes.
saving up for.
Yeah. It's really fantastic. They really brought it all out.
Everything in that episode was just like such a great conclusion to what we've been through, to Boji's story, to the whole, like, so many loose ends were tied up. Maybe not every loose end, but that's fine. Like I feel like they could have just ended the series there, and it would have been great. And then the problem is we had 2 episodes.
22 and 23 happened. 22 might be like.
If you go back and check the tape on our last episode, I literally say I hope they don't redeem Miranjo, at least not like completely. Like I knew they were going to probably save her or whatever, but
22 is probably the worst episode of Ranking of Kings.
Yeah,
I would easily say that. Yes,
I think so. Yeah, it's so. As we are alluding to, 22 is mostly about the liberation and redemption, in scare quotes, of Miranjo, and
who I'll remind everyone has murdered people,
everything,
committed war crimes, sacrificed children to the devil. Like she's literally sacrificed children to the devil.
Yeah, like Miranjo is an evil person who has done like very evil, like, and that's the thing, and that is the thing that maybe bothers me a lot about Ranking of Kings, like kind of weird, like fairy tale take on morality, is that Ranking of Kings' thesis is essentially that Miranjo did evil things, but she's not an evil person.
Right.
When like. Right. I think most of us would probably argue that your actions define who you are.
Yes.
Right.
Like, and I was thinking about how so and again, we're just spoiling the show to whatever.
Oh,
so
yeah.
stop listening, folks. But when they reveal that Despa was really there to try to save Oken to get the wish for the devil.
Wish.
It was to the point where I was hoping that they would save Oken over
Right.
who was also a mass murderer over Miranjo.
Literally
went like
did
crazy,
nothing wrong.
right?
Like Oken was literally just a victim of his curse, right?
Right.
Like,
yes, Miranjo made those choices
like
on her own accord.
Miranjo did literally everything wrong. Oken, unironically, not even in the Anafugo way, but in the truly unironic, Oken did nothing wrong.
Right.
Like
that's like blaming
choice, right?
it'd be like blaming an animal for eating somebody. Like,
right. Like the dude is literally like a cursed to go crazy from immortality. Like, and so it really, really bothers me because in the end, it feels like for worse, not for better or worse, just for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Ranking of Kings falls into the old trap of that I think anime often falls into of the conventionally pretty character is redeemed regardless of their past actions. Mm-hmm. And the monsters, at least visually, regardless of their actions, are forced to continue to suffer. And it really bothers me because here's the thing. We all knew in our... Like, once Boji forgave Domas, I think we all understood in our heart of hearts, okay, Boji will forgive anyone, right? Boji will forgive Miranjo, right? We know this to be true.
Right.
The thing...
That doesn't mean the writer has to forgive her.
Right.
Right. Like,
and even more than that, it's not that Miranjo isn't undeserving of redemption, but she has to earn that redemption.
Right.
Yeah.
And the writing does not allow that to happen. It just hands it to her for free.
And I should point out, it's not like it's not when we say she gets off like completely scot-free here. Like, it's not like, oh, she doesn't die. It's not like, oh, well, they just put her in prison or something. Daida is like, I'm going to marry you.
Yes. Like, which
is weird.
Like,
which is a whole other thing to unpack.
I mean, Daida is literally an Elden Ring character. Like, he is willing to forgive. Like, this man is chasing after the pussy of a girl who is evil. Like, that is Daida's entire MO. Yeah. Daida is going to usher in the Age of Stars.
My God.
Age of Mirrors.
I digress. No, but so the thing that really frustrates me. Okay, actually, like joking aside, like let's say, like actually getting down to it. The argument that Ranking of Kings essentially makes is that if the person who was wronged forgives the wrongdoer, then everybody else should also be expected to accept that forgiveness, right?
Right.
The core thesis is that, well, Daida was the one wronged by Miranjo, and if Daida forgives Miranjo, then all is forgiven.
Well,
if we're just meant to ignore all the other people.
Yeah, there are a lot more people wronged than just Daida.
Right.
How about
Daida wasn't even that okay? Like, sure, he was locked up in the void for 20 episodes, right? But,
she did use his body to sacrifice his body to resurrect her.
Daida saying, "Oh, I forgive you." It's like you've been arguably the least wronged.
Right.
For the rest of us. Like
I swear to God, when they showed the ghost of her mom and Boji's mom giving her the thumbs up, I was like,
I gotta have Boji's mom give like double middle fingers or something.
I know, right? Like, it's like, it really frustrates me because it's like, I know that this show is going to be this type of show, right? It's going to have this type of morality, but like, so here's the thing. As a contrast, Domas does something essentially unforgivable, right? He tries to murder a child. Domas arguably earns his redemption because we are shown him suffering for his actions.
Right, he puts his life on the line to try to make up for...
We see him internalizing his guilt. We see him going through the motions of, like, the deep self-loathing for his actions. And so, in the end, when Domas swears to serve Boji to the end of his days... we can on one hand still say, yeah, but you're still a fuckboy, but also, I guess you have paid your dues. You got kicked in the nuts by King Waluigi.
And even then, like, I praised the show for having Boji. Like, I knew Boji was going to forgive him, but, like, he was reluctant to because that makes sense, right?
Yes,
like,
exactly, right? Domas, like, again, I wouldn't even say earns, but he gets his redemption over the course of, like, 5-6 episodes.
They make some effort. They make some effort.
It is portrayed with nuance of, like, you've done things that are unforgivable, and so, therefore, like, you know, you'll have to work to...
Yes.
Pay off your metaphorical debt.
And even more than that, Domas accepts that he may never be forgiven. Right? Which I think is one of the key parts of redemption in fiction. Hell, redemption in real life. Like, this is literally what Megalobox 2 was about. Is that you're not owed redemption. You're not owed forgiveness.
Right.
You should still go through the actions. You still have to pay that debt. But you should pay that debt knowing and accepting you may never be forgiven.
Right.
Like, that's part of what redemption is. And...
Because it's not about being forgiven, it's about making things right.
We don't even really see Miranjo's perspective much on this.
No. Like,
she's just told you're forgiven.
Like, that's what really frustrates me about 22 and 23, is that Daida just says, you're forgiven, and then Miranjo just spends most of that episode crying.
Right.
Like...
She's just like,
I
don't deserve
She has like one pithy line about how, like, I'll make sure what I did never happens again. Like, yeah, no shit, you dumb bitch. That's the bare minimum. Like,
yeah. I mean,
like, here's the thing. It would have been performative. It still wouldn't have, like, alleviated things that much. But if we had even just gotten one line about, like, after Daida says he forgives Miranjo, if Miranjo had even just said something along the lines of, like, I don't accept your forgiveness because I'm not worthy of it yet. Right?
Even like, that much.
If she had the self-awareness to say, I'm not worthy of that yet, like, I have a long... Like, if Miranjo had just said, I have a long road ahead of me to be worthy of that forgiveness, and that I have there are a lot of things I have to do for many people before I am worthy of your forgiveness. If she had even said that, like, look, it's still performative.
It still wouldn't have been great, but at least that would have been something, right? Like,
but at least it would prove that the writing of the show understands that, like, that for a proper, like, redemption that is worthy of forgiveness, that there is a long road to get there. And instead it just fucking hands that shit to her like a trophy. Like,
I think the only way out of that could have been if they set up some way, even if they forgive her, that she would have had to maybe sacrifice herself to save everybody or something, right? Like, that's right. Like, you can't have her continue to just be there, I don't think.
Right.
Like,
and it's frustrating on all levels, right? Because again, as we were alluding to earlier, Miranjo's redemption also fucks over the characters we like way more than Miranjo.
Right.
Like, Despa, when it's revealed that Despa and Desha did this whole thing on the, like, one, like, long
1/100th chance of
shot in the dark hope of saving their brother. Right. And Daida just fucking swipes that.
Yeah.
And, like, Despa is just, like, weirdly forgiving of it, and he just kind of gives this, like, finger-wagging speech to Miranjo, like, well, you better make sure that history remembers your actions. It's like...
Yeah.
And, like... And actually what really frustrates me about this on a different level is that that's what pushes Desha to accept the #1 ranking.
Right.
Like, Desha... It is implied at the end of the series that Desha is going to sacrifice his own sanity and morality on the off chance that it will save his brother. So, not only do we have the character that nobody likes getting redeemed, but the character that many of us do like is going to, like, probably get brainwashed into just a flat, boring villain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like, and this is not to, like, say, oh, that, like, Desha did nothing wrong. Okay, look, Desha killed a kid too, alright? Like, let's be clear here.
But again, they spent the time to explore the complicated feelings about that and everything. Like,
exactly.
It's not like, yeah, it's not that, like, black and white, but yeah.
And another reason why this bothers me on a more meta level is that one of the things I liked about Desha as a character is that he was part of the general ranking of kings, like, theme of, like, you can't judge a book by its cover, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, Domas, the Golden Knight, turns out to be a craven, sniveling backstabber. Bebin,
Right.
the shady Snake Knight, turns out to actually be an honest, compassionate individual, right?
Yeah.
Appius, the stoic knight, is actually simping mega hard for this lady in a mirror, right? All these characters are defined by, like, not only their appearance, but also in the ways they buck that trend, right? And so Desha is part of that. Desha appears to be your stereotypical monstrous, Mao demon king, right? Mm-hmm. But then you find his backstory about how he and his brothers were leading a rebellion against an even worse person, their own father. And how, like, that, like, experience defined their relationship. And so the thing that really worries me about Desha accepting the number 1 ranking is that, are we going to get a character like Desha who is, like, fun and, like, multifaceted and interesting in ways? And is he going to just get reduced into an evil stereotype?
Right, to take the conventionally, like, evil-looking character and just turn them into a conventionally evil character after already taking the time to explore how he's a multifaceted individual.
Exactly, and it really frustrates me because this is all done to the benefit of Miranjo, a character that... Look, I am not saying that she is unsympathetic. I am not saying that she has not endured legitimate suffering based on her, well, now increasingly questionably suspect backstory. Mm-hmm. But, like, she didn't deserve to win this big. Like, maybe there's a world where Ranking of Kings does end with Miranjo being freed with the mirror. But it does not. She did not earn an ending this clean,
right?
Yeah. And
as a result, in a story that's we enjoyed because it's more nuanced than a storybook fairy tale.
And hell, like, this even kind of gets into probably, let's be real, probably most of our problems with 23 as well, where, like, Boji becomes the king.
23 just felt like complete throwaway, like completely inconsequential.
Like, this is one of those things of, like, this is probably one of those problems where, like, in the original manga, this is just a chapter transition between this arc and the next arc.
Right.
But the nature of anime means that they have to, like, inflate it to feel more significant than it actually is.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of the most hackneyed premise of, like, oh no, Kage thinks that now that Boji's king, he doesn't need me anymore, so
Which doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. Like, we were talking about the dude who literally stowed away in this kid's backpack on Bebin's, like, suggestion to save this dude's life from Domas.
The whole ending just really felt like amateur hour to me. Like, I don't, like...
It feels like they... Oh my god, like, I hate to even say this because, like, it feels like they looked at some of the emotional beats of, like, the first season, and all they took from it was... Oh, people like Ranking of Kings because the characters cry a lot. It's like that's all they took from it. Because that's what it feels like in the last episode. Is just, oh, but look, Kage and Boji are crying together. Isn't that a great emotional payoff? And it's like, no, because the premise was faulty to begin with. Like,
I'll say I'll throw in with the crying. The only highlight is Queen Healing being MVP.
Healing's great. Like, that's the thing. Healing is actually the one unassailable character all the way to the end of this show. Like, that final conversation Queen Healing has with Boji is masterful. It's like, if you
when she first, even a couple episodes back, like it might have been in 22 even, when she finally gets to see both Boji and Daida and her sons and how they've grown up, that was like a great moment. But that was like a combined 3 minutes of 2 episodes.
Yes. Like, unbelievably well handled character. Maybe like one of the best like fictional moms I've seen.
Yeah, she's got to be top. She's top tier anime mom.
Yeah, like top
sure.
mom. Mm-hmm. Like, if you posted that clip of Healing's final conversation with Boji in the last episode about, like, you know, your obligations as a king, but also how much you deserve happiness. Yeah. And like how at the end of the day, all parents truly want is for their children to be happy. You post that clip out of context, that's like an all-timer like moment in character acting.
Right, it's great.
The problem is the context of which that conversation occurs.
Yeah.
It's like, God damn it.
With all the ridiculous shots of Boji filling out paperwork.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're running out of time here, but I do want to go here with this. I was thinking a lot about the controversy that came out of a couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And which, you can go back to the 2 episodes ago when we talked about this in full, but the general idea was that in one of the episodes, with Miranjo's backstory, it was implied that there are people accusing the author of using that as a allegory for Japan's colonization of Korea and, painting that as a justifiable position or whatever. But I was thinking about that again with Miranjo's redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly because in this allegory, Miranjo would essentially represent Japan, right?
Yes.
And how she is completely absolved of all guilt.
I see where this is going.
And particularly Despa's little finger wagging speech that you mentioned. How, she should, continue on. So I think the exact wording he used was, you should live on to tell people why you did what you did. So that, history doesn't repeat itself.
Yep.
And basically that, and by saying why you did what you did, kind of implying that it was justified.
Right, so that people will understand the justification of your actions.
Yes. And again, while I still feel this is all vague enough to not necessarily accuse Ranking of Kings of taking that position, I don't think it helps.
Right. Look, if the gods hadn't placed an embargo on oil sales to us,
Jesus Christ,
we wouldn't have had to invade.
Because that is the implication, because they show Miranjo. She's horribly abused. Like, that's not in question,
yes.
right?
Yes,
but to take that as any kind of justification for the response, which, again, were all things that she chose to do, that she didn't have to do. Yes. That more so than, because practically every character in the show has done something bad, but there's usually, if not a justification, there's usually a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
Right, like
Miranjo barely had, like, I guess she likes Boss a lot. Like, that's her entire motivation.
That's kind of it, yeah.
And this is all very bad things that she chose to do, and she has no consequences for them. And then when you tie that back into those accusations, it's like, it's not a great look. And again,
it really isn't.
I don't think it's, like, clear enough to, like, really confirm that is what they're trying to say. But
it doesn't quite line up, but I think I have a pretty good, like, grasp on, like, what you are getting at with the nature of, like,
it doesn't help
in a lot of ways, like, not to, like, go full meta, but, like, I would argue that there are in fact a lot of Japanese stories, and their feelings on redemption often feel like they're based in very specific events that happened in Japan's cultural memory, shall we say. And
I would level similar accusations to those as well. Like, I'm not just singling out Ranking of Kings, but
it is the thing, right? Of even if it's not intentional, you write what you know, and you write about where you come from, and so it wouldn't be surprising for that to be the case. I just think that it is unfortunate that for a show that, like, started so strong about, like,
we shouldn't be having this conversation.
No, like this is a show that, like, at its core believed in the power of empathy to save us, right? Like a show that believed that empathy and understanding would bring us all higher. For it to, like, use the most basic, like, simple version of that theme in its finale, like, it really is unfortunate because, like, in a lot of ways, I was telling Eero this, like, if Ranking of Kings had started out as a typical fairy tale, I don't think any of us would have watched it. Like, we watched it because it was a fairy tale with, like, nuance and depth that had interesting things to say about its fairy tale archetypes.
Right. So it feels bad when the ending is just the most basic ass fairy tale archetype.
Yeah, it's just a fairy tale ending. It's like, it feels like it threw out all that nuance and depth by the time it reached its conclusion. And it's just unfortunate because I think, as we were saying, like, there are like some legitimately great moments in a vacuum, even in these final episodes, but the way this show concludes is just this. It's impossible to ignore, and that's tragic.
Yeah. You're supposed to be the chosen one.
Like, I think, like, it breaks my heart because I think to every time we fucking just, like, you know, offhandedly said, like, whatever about 2021, 2022 is Ranking of Kings year.
Right.
Right? About how we gleefully, did not include Ranking of Kings in our top, like, ranking of 2021 because...
it was a true record of our feelings at the time.
Of our sheer confidence.
But this is why we don't... This is why we don't include it until it's done.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
I think it has to be that way, right? Because, like, if we had included Ranking of Kings on our 2021 list... How do we feel now, right? Like,
yeah, I think as time passes, I'll probably, even in the couple days since the last episode aired, I've lightened up a little bit on it.
Sure.
I think it could still end up in my top 5 by the end of the year, but it's not a slam dunk number 1 anymore.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, but that's the thing. It went from the obvious front runner to now merely a contender amongst the pack.
Yeah. And and what's sad is, like, when I'm remembering Ranking of Kings at the end of the year, 9 months from now, like, the first thing I'm probably gonna think about is the ending.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate because there were 20 fantastic episodes before that.
There sure were.
So
yeah,
I don't know. We will have that discussion again in December, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that puts a bow on this past season of anime. We'll see how next season goes, whether we need to go to the backlog again. I do want to note, I did finish Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 2.
It's good.
Again,
it's pretty good.
We're running out of time here, but I just want to say that was very good.
Yeah.
The last couple of episodes were absolutely wild.
Yeah, like speaking of a show that, I mean, God, I don't want to curse it here, but speaking of a show that will never let you down.
Nothing will ever go wrong.
Yeah.
No,
look, as long as Urobuchi stays on board, I think Thunderbolt will be okay. It's crazy to say that, but I feel like as long as Urobuchi remains committed to
Thunderbolt Fantasy does feel like his true calling.
Yes.
Think. But yeah, man, it was all great though. I mean, you want to talk about simping? I did not expect the monk guy to go that hard for
sword,
the evil sword, and everything.
You ever just see a man simp for a sword so hard
there's
they
like weirdly borderline sexual attraction to
yes.
And then
man, I can't wait for you to get to season 3.
Yeah,
there is some stuff about.
We'll get there.
Men's relation with swords and men's relation with women.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
Let's just say use
yes.
the sword in season 2 as a jump off point for that.
They found a whole new path to go down with that, huh?
I guess we'll see. I guess you'll see.
But first of all, you're gonna have to watch the second movie.
Yes. Okay. That's
Bewitching
next.
Melody of the West, which is
great.
I would agree with Ero's assessment. Is maybe the best Thunderbolt Fantasy has ever been.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I'm looking forward to that then. Did you guys you would still be watching Big O
and Gunsword? Yeah.
Yes, we will be continuing that into next season.
Yeah. And you can check out our last episode for our preview for next season. I'm not going to get into that.
Right.
We're mostly just looking forward to Spy Family, so we'll see how that goes. But all right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode then. Let's do our housekeeping. You can just check us out at theglorioblog.com, where we will be doing our first look soon. It's happening soon, in the next couple weeks. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, all that good stuff. You can tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.